Welcome to the Fogwood Files, where fog lingers among the trees and the forest holds its secrets close. The Canadian Maritimes are a land of silence and shadow, where paths dissolve into mist and voices echo without a source. Here, beneath the canopy of pines, people have witnessed things they cannot explain. Their words remain as fragments of a larger mystery, stories carried through the woods like whispers in the dark. Tonight, we open one of those accounts and step deeper into the ledger of the strange.
Case File 011, the Dungavon Hooper. Date of encounter, October 2023. Location, Renus, New Brunswick. Report submitted, October 2024.
I'm writing this report because I don't want anyone else thinking they can turn ghosts into clickbait. I went into the Dungavon woods with a tent, 2 GoPros, and a thumbnail ready in my head that said, "Alone with a hooper, he screamed first." I thought it was going to be funny. I thought it was going to be original. Instead, I got humbled by something I still can't properly explain without feeling like I'm about to hear it again. I run a mid-sized outdoor YouTube channel called Northbound Nomad. It's mostly gear reviews, budget hikes, that kind of thing. I'd hit a plateau in views, and I figured I needed to lean into the ghost territory for October. Everyone else is doing haunted hotels or abandoned asylums. I wanted to see something untapped. Maritime Canada is crawling with legends, so I searched for the creepiest one I could find. And that's when I found the Dungavon Hooper. The story goes like this. Back in the late 1800s, somewhere near the Dungavon River in New Brunswick, there was a lumber camp deep in the woods. One of the men was a young Irish cook, new to the job, carrying all his savings in a money belt around his waist. He was described in the accounts I read as cheerful, talkative, the kind to sing along to a kettle on the fire. One day, the crew headed out to work, leaving only the cook and the camp boss behind. When the workers returned that evening, the boss claimed the cook had dropped dead suddenly. No witnesses, no explanation, and more suspiciously, no money belt. It was winter, so they buried the cook in the shallow frozen ground. That night, while they were trying to sleep, the forest erupted with a sound so horrifying that hardened lumbermen run for their lives. Not a wolf howl, not a human scream. Something between. A long, echoing whoop that rose and fell like a dying man calling for help and punishment at the same time. Some said it shook the trees, rattled tents, and even made the ice on the river tremble. Witnesses swore the cry repeated through the whole night, following them down the frozen river as they fled. This legend only grew from there. Whenever the railway line was built through that region, conductors reportedly blew their whistles in the area to answer the whoop. If they didn't, the train supposedly derailed. Hunters avoided the woods at night. Locals claimed even the wolves refused to enter that territory after dark. People from nearby Renus or Upper Dungavon would tell you the same thing in hushed tones. If you hear the whooper, you don't run, you don't do a thing. Just wait. That line alone would have been enough to make me roll my eyes, but I love the storytelling potential. Still, before heading in, I wanted first-hand perspective. I stopped at a tiny supply store in Renus, the kind where the bell over the door makes a honking echo in the empty space. The shelves smelled like canned beans and pine-scented air fresheners. I tried to make a joke. "Hey, where do I get myself whooped?" I said, smiling, expecting laughter. She didn't laugh. She didn't even smile. She just stared at me like she was weighing whether I was the kind of idiot who needed saving or just lost. "You don't camp out there alone," she said flatly. Right, totally," I said, chuckling and waving her off, buying jerky and bug spray. Outside, a kid on a bike passed by and asked, "You really going into the Hooper Woods?" I nodded, and he just shrugged like he'd been asked to believe in Santa Claus one too many times. "Don't be back too late," he said. No joke, no smile, just don't be back too late. Later, I wandered to a small diner on the main road, trying to get some sense of the local lore. But it quickly became clear that the story wasn't something people treated lightly. One of the older gentlemen at the counter leaned in when I asked about the Whooper. He wore a worn lumber jacket and smelled faintly of diesel and maple syrup. "Ah, the cook, eh? That boy didn't take kindly to being left behind," he said, tapping the counter. "Some say he's still wandering, and if you make a fool of his woods, well, he'll let you know you're trespassing." I laughed it off, of course. My brain was still in YouTube thumbnail mode. I snapped a few pictures for the story, including a sign reading Dungavon River Logging Company, and drove off toward the trailhead. Only later did I realize those weren't warnings, they were reminders. Reminders from people who'd grown up hearing those screams and lived long enough to tell me, in their own quiet ways, that some things are not for show. So I drove out to Renoose, found a little supply store, and, like an idiot, I packed up, bought my supplies, smiled at the cashier, thinking I'd secured the thumbnail in my head. I didn't realize until much later that wasn't a warning. That was the last kindness I was going to get. I reached the spot just before dusk, a rough clearing off an old logging trail, about 15 minutes from the Dungavon River. No official trail markers, no campsites, just enough space for a tent, a fire pit, and a bad decision. I filmed my intro leaning against the tailgate of my SUV, big grin, headlamp strapped to my forehead like a discount Ghostbuster. What's up, nomads? Tonight, I'm doing what no one on YouTube has dared. Solo camping in Whooper country. If I hear anything, I'll be rolling. If I get taken, upload this, okay? Oh, I actually said that into the camera, thinking I was hilarious. I set up camp fast. Tent, tripod, crackling fire. Ate some jerky, cracked a beer, and started narrating spooky commentary like I was auditioning for a Travel Channel Halloween special. I even tried to imitate the legend. They say the whooper goes like, whoop, 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 or something. Either way, if I hear it, I'm whooping back. That was my mindset. Mockery disguised as bravery. The woods had other plans. The first oddity wasn't a sound. It was silence. Around 8 p.m., right when I expected crickets and owls to kick in, everything just stopped. Like someone muted the forest. No wind through the branches, no bugs, even the fire crackled quieter as if the air around me was dense. I said something dumb into the camera like, well, that's atmospheric. But off camera, I'll admit this, it got under my skin. When nature stops talking, you start listening. Then came the footsteps. Not deer, not bear, not human. My firelight only reached so far, but about 30 feet away, just beyond the glow, I heard something moving in a slow arc around my clearing. Not charging, not sneaking, just pacing. Deliberate. Testing the perimeter. I pointed my flashlight, but the beam caught nothing but skeletal branches. Still, I heard it. Step, drag, step, drag. Like a boot filled with wet mud or something pulling something heavy behind it. That should have been the moment I called it off. Packed up, left, but instead, I narrated. Something's circling me right now. If that's you, Mr. Whooper, you're gonna need to step closer. They need to see you, buddy. I didn't realize until I watched the footage back later. My voice shakes when I say that. The pacing stopped. I waited. Nothing. Then, from the darkness, a single knock, like a stick hitting a tree. Slowly, intentionally. Tuck. 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 Not random, not wind. Communication? I looked at the camera and actually said, well, now we're getting somewhere. I thought I was in control of the tone. I thought I was still the one running the script. I hadn't yet learned I wasn't making a video anymore. I was being introduced. I've replayed this moment 100 times, trying to figure out when exactly the shift happened. When I crossed some invisible line between watching and being watched. I think it was right after the knocking stopped. Right after I said, "Come on, let's hear it." Because it heard me. Oh, it definitely heard me. At first I thought it was the wind. A low gust pushing through treetops. But there was no wind that night. The air was thick and unmoving. And this wasn't traveling through trees. It was moving across them. As if sound, not breeze, were brushing the branches. A long rising groan, distant but swelling. And then it broke. It did not sound like a human screaming. It didn't even sound like an animal howling. It was like both, layered and stretched, like two voices trying to fit into one throat. One deeper, raw with rage, the other one higher, almost metallic, like steam ripping through iron. Every nerve in my body locked up. I didn't even reach for the camera, I just froze, because nothing in my brain had a file ready for that sound. It vibrated in my ribs. It rattled the metal of my lantern. It traveled like it wasn't bound by normal space. It didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere. Worst of all, it kept going. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30. The fire crackled beneath it like background noise to a nightmare. Then it stopped, abruptly, like a door slamming shut on the world. And the forest, that dead, silent forest, exhaled. The trees creaked. A raven shrieked in the distance. Something ran through the underbrush away from me. Even nature was terrified. I wish I could say I had the sense to pack up then, but fear does weird things depending on who you are. Some people run. Some people pray. I got angry. Not at it, but at myself. My ego kicked back in like a faulty breaker switch. I stood up, legs shaking, and yelled into the dark. Do it again! Bravery? No. Arrogance. Raw, stupid arrogance. And the response came instantly. Not a scream, not a whoop. Laughter. I swear to God, laughter. Not joyful, not manic, slow, warped, wet, like someone trying to copy human laughter but getting the pacing wrong. Each ha delivered slightly too long, spaced unevenly, echoing from high in the trees as if perched above me. Ha! 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 My knees nearly gave out. My throat went dry. That was the moment I knew. I was no longer filming the content. I was the content. That thing wasn't trying to scare me off. It was playing with me. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if making it whoop again was a victory or an invitation. That laughter didn't fade. It shifted. It split. One voice became several, as if the trees themselves started echoing back in broken imitation. Some higher, some raspier, some shorter, like a crowd of unseen throats trying to harmonize without knowing the melody. I didn't yell again. I didn't move. I just stood there, like a rooted fence post, trying to calculate whether bolting to the car would trigger something worse. My tent was 10 feet away. My keys were inside my backpack. My fire was thinning fast. Crunch to my right. Crunch to my left. Slow, dragging footsteps, closing in. Not hurried, not predatory. Confident. That was the worst part. Whatever was out there had no fear at all of me. That's when it changed tactics. It started talking. Not in words, not yet, but in tones. It began mimicking my voice, little fragments of what I had said earlier that night. Come on! Let's hear it! Upload this! Each phrase was warbled, crooked, some slower than I'd said them, some sharp and fast, like it was trying to taste the sound. I felt my body start to shrink from the inside. You ever hear your own voice played back to you and you cringe? Imagine hearing it played back from the throat of a corpse you've never seen. Then came the worst part. It said my name. Not loudly, not shouting, whispered, up close, right behind me. Ethan. I spun, so fast I nearly stumbled into the fire. I shone my flashlight straight into the dark, but branches, nothing but branches. Then again, this time from the trees above. Ethan. I'd never told the camera my name. I only say nomads or guys when I speak to my viewers. I hadn't spoken my name aloud once that day. So how did it know? It was testing me. It wanted a reaction, a reply, a confirmation. I didn't give it one. Something primal kicked in. Not courage, but ancestral compliance. The part of my brain that recognized, without logic or science, that I was not being hunted by an animal. I was being addressed by something that understood rules. And I had one shot to get those rules right. I didn't grab my bag. I didn't make excuses. I raised my hand, palm out like a crossing guard, and backed toward my tent. No words. No challenge. Just no. The laughter stopped. The forest fell still. I heard one more slow step, right at the edge of the firelight, and then silence. Not gone, not retreated, just waiting. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I sat in that tent with my knife and headlamp pointed at the door until dawn finally dragged itself through the pines like salvation. When sunlight hit, the world returned to normal. Except for one thing. There were boot prints in the dirt. Not mine. Not even modern. They were old, square-toed, heel-heavy. And right beside them, a money belt, half buried in the soil. I didn't touch that money belt. I don't know if that makes me wise or cowardly, but every instinct I had screamed that it wasn't a find. It was an offer. Or worse, a test. It looked old, but not rotten. Leather worn, smooth in places, frayed in others. The buckle was tarnished green. A few coins were still inside, half visible through a tear in the side. Canadian pennies. A silver piece I didn't recognize. It wasn't placed there. It was returned. Like something had carried it this whole time and laid it down to see what I would do. I packed up in silence. No vlog outro. No, well, that was spooky, guys. Smash that like button. I didn't want to speak. Not even to myself. I was terrified that if I opened my mouth, something would speak through me. The woods stayed quiet while I worked. No wind, no birds, no more footsteps. But I could feel something tracking me. Not following, just watching my exit. Making sure I knew I'd been allowed to leave. The drive back to the main road was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Every bump of the tires sounded like footsteps. Every tree a reflection in the window that looked like something moving alongside me. Even when I hit pavement, the fear didn't lift. That kind of fear doesn't stay in the woods. I didn't upload the footage. At least, not the full thing. I stitched a few clips together without audio. Just enough to prove I was there. A wide shot of the clearing, my face before things started. Then, a cut to me at dawn, pale and wide-eyed, saying into the camera, "There's a reason the old legends stick around. Something's out there that doesn't care if you believe in it, but it cares a whole lot if you mock it." I titled the video, "I Will Never Camp Alone Again, Dungavon Woods," and I turned off monetization. Currently it's sitting at 200k views. Half the comments say I faked it. Half say I didn't go far enough. Of course, no one gets it. So I'm writing this report for anyone who does. Let me make this clear. The Dungavon Whooper isn't a ghost story. It's not even a campfire tale, and it's not a cute regional legend for tourism brochures. It's a warning, left behind by terrified men who heard something they couldn't explain, and knew better than to pretend they imagined it. And now I know too. So here are the rules. If you go into those woods, don't whistle. Do not call out. Do not try to make it perform for you. If you hear it, if that long, terrible whoop tears through the trees, do not answer. Do not scream back. Do not laugh. Because it will laugh with you. And if it finds your name, there won't be laughter next time. End of report.
This report submitted by the Fogwood Files. Another account pulled from the fog preserved in the records. If you'd like the next story to find its way to you, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll be here when the next fire is lit. Until then, stay close to the firelight, because in the woods, you're never truly alone, and something is always waiting just beyond the glow.